Ajanigo had started dating her boyfriend Desmond when she was just 14, and Desmond was 18. Her mother had warned her to end whatever relationship they had, but Ajanigo didn't listen. Her father didn't only scold her, he went as far as withdrawing her from school. Despite this, Ajanigo continued to sneak out to see Desmond whenever no one was home. Desmond was living with his uncle, who stayed very close to Ajanigo's home. Eventually, her father, along with her 2 brothers and some police officers, went to Desmond's uncle's house and had him arrested. Desmond was later released on bail, but his uncle forbade him from returning to his house. He had to return to his parents' home in another state. A few months after Desmond left, Ajanigo discovered she was pregnant at just 15. When her father found out, he chased her out of the house, telling her never to return. The only means of communication back then was through writing letters, which took weeks or even months to deliver. Her mother secretly passed a few of Ajanigo's belongings to her through the window, but when Ajanigo begged her mother to let her stay, her mother only threw more things at her, telling her to leave. "You know you have no other family, and yet you went and opened your legs for that riffraff," her mother thundered. "Mother, please forgive me, it was a mistake," Ajanigo pleaded on her knees. Her mother picked up a pestle and threatened to throw it at her. Terrified, Ajanigo got up and ran out of the compound as quickly as possible. Neighbors gathered, begging her parents to let her stay, but they turned a deaf ear. After a few hours of wandering, Ajanigo picked up her scattered clothes, tied them together in one of her wrappers, and carried them on her head while tears streamed down her cheeks. As soon as she stepped out of the compound, she heard someone call her name from afar. It was one of her neighbors, Auntie Agnes. "Ajanigo," Auntie Agnes called. "Yes, ma," Ajanigo answered, her head bowed. Auntie Agnes quickly pressed something into Ajanigo's palm and hurried back inside. Ajanigo opened her palm to find some money. She whispered a prayer of gratitude and left, unsure of where she was going. After a long, tiring walk, she remembered Desmond's uncle. She went straight to his house and knocked on the door. "Ajanigo," the uncle called out, surprised. "Why do you look like this? Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. "Sir, it's a long story," she replied. Come in," he insisted, motioning her inside. "Please, sit and make yourself comfortable. What is it? Is everything okay with you?" "No, sir. Sir, please, do you know where your nephew Desmond is?" Ajanigo asked. "Is something wrong?" the uncle questioned. I, Ajanigo stuttered. "Go on," he urged. "I'm pregnant, sir, for him. My parents have chased me out," she managed to say. "What?" the uncle exclaimed. "You children of nowadays. As young as you are, you're already pregnant for someone, and you're not even sure if he will marry you." "It was a mistake," Ajanigo said, sobbing. "Mistake? Well, the only thing I can do for you is give you his parents' address and some money for transport," he said. Ajanigo knelt down. "Thank you, sir." The uncle went into his room, returned with some money, and handed it to her. Ajanigo took it and left for the park, where she boarded a vehicle to the state where Desmond's parents lived. She reached there around 4 a.m. the next morning and waited at the park until the day brightened. Then she set out for the address the uncle had given her. When she finally arrived, a woman approached her. "Yes?" the woman questioned. "Good day, ma," Ajanigo greeted. "Good day. Who are you?" the woman asked again. Ajanigo dropped the clothes she was carrying on her head. "My name is Ajanigo, ma. I'm looking for Desmond," she responded. "From where?" the woman inquired. "From where he was staying with his uncle, ma," Ajanigo replied. "Okay?" the woman asked again. Desmond and I are in a relationship, ma, and I'm a few weeks pregnant for him," Ajanigo said, her voice trembling. "What?" the woman exclaimed. "God forbid. So because you heard he joined the army, you've suddenly shown up with pregnancy claims. Now, pick up that thing you just dropped and leave this place. How old are you that you're already opening your legs? Imagine this small brat," she thundered. Ajanigo was already wailing uncontrollably, unsure where to go if they chased her out. She was lost in thought when a man in his 60s walked into the compound. He bore a striking resemblance to Desmond. "What's happening here?" he queried. "My husband." This little girl walked into the compound, claiming that Desmond impregnated her, the woman said. "What? From where?" the man questioned. "From where he was staying with his uncle, sir. We were in a relationship before he left for this place, Ajanigo said, tears streaming down her face. But Desmond joined the military a few weeks ago and won't be coming back anytime soon, the man said, looking at her. I have nowhere else to go, sir. My parents chased me out and told me never to return, Ajanigo explained. But how did you find your way here? He asked. His uncle gave me the address, she replied. Well, you can't stay here. Take your things and get out of my house, the wife thundered. Your house? Did you bring any house with you when I married you? The man asked his wife. My child, are you sure Desmond is responsible for the pregnancy? He asked Ajanigo. Yes, sir, Ajanigo nodded. Pick up your things, he said, turning to his wife. Take her to the third room and let her stay there until Desmond returns, he ordered before turning back and going inside. Thank you, sir, Ajanigo said, relieved. You think you can just appear from nowhere with pregnancy claims? You will suffer, the woman threatened. Ajanigo ignored Desmond's mother's harsh words, carrying her load and following her to the room. You're lucky my husband arrived on time and found you here. You don't know what you're in for yet. How could Desmond impregnate you? I'm sure my son hasn't even seen a woman's underwear before, let alone slept with one. Don't worry, we shall see, she said harshly and left. Ajanigo didn't let her statements bother her much. At least she now had a place to stay. Later that night, Desmond's father, whom Ajanigo decided to call Baba, sent for her. She met him in the living room, where he was seated with his wife and two of Desmond's siblings, a boy and a girl. You've been in your room all day. Why didn't you come outside to get some fresh air? Baba asked. Nothing, sir, Ajanigo replied. Her eyes met Desmond's mother's, who eyed her so fiercely that she almost fell off the couch. What's your name? Baba asked. My name is Ajanigo, sir, she replied. Wow, I'll call you Nigo for short. You already know I'm Desmond's father. Beside me is his mother. Sitting over there is his younger brother, Shola, and his younger sister, Ofure. Please, make yourself comfortable and I welcome you once again. Even if my son isn't the one responsible for your pregnancy, if you had come to me for help, I would have still helped you because that's the kind of person I am. It's in my nature. But I'm very glad knowing that I'll soon be a grandfather, so I'll make sure to take very good care of you until Desmond returns, he assured. But how sure are you that Desmond is even the one responsible for this girl's pregnancy? Shola inquired. It's only a woman who can tell you who the father of her child or children is, Baba replied. Okay, I hear, Desmond's mother muttered. They all retired to their rooms that night. Ajanigo lay on her bed, praying to God to bring Desmond back safe and sound. She also decided to call Desmond's mother Mama because they were now her family. Months passed, and Ajanigo endured all sorts of maltreatment, especially from Mama and Shola. But Baba and Ofur treated her well. 6 months later, Ajanigo was heavily pregnant. One morning, while she was sweeping the floor, she noticed someone walking into the compound from afar. She took a second look, and to her surprise, it was Desmond. Overjoyed, she flung the broom aside and ran towards him. But just as she was about to hug him, he pushed her away and looked at her from head to toe. What are you doing here? Desmond questioned. The scene was tense as she was about to respond when a piercing scream erupted from behind. It was his mother, her voice filled with shock. Almost immediately, his siblings joined in, their eyes wide with alarm. But Desmond couldn't tear his gaze away from her. His expression was a mixture of disbelief and confusion, as if he were struggling to comprehend her presence. Mom, wait. What is she doing here, looking like this? Desmond questioned, his voice trembling slightly. My son, come inside and freshen up first. We'll discuss everything afterward, his mother replied gently. But Desmond was persistent. No, Mom, how did she get here? He asked again, his eyes never leaving her. His mother sighed deeply before explaining, well, she came here claiming that you impregnated her. For the past 6 months, she's been living with us. I told your father that the Desmond I know has never been intimate with any woman, but he didn't believe me. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she recounted the story. She stood there trembling, fear creeping up her spine as Baba, Desmond's father, called out from where he stood in front of the house. Desmond quickly went to greet his father, and after a brief conversation that she couldn't hear, Desmond followed him inside without another word. She felt a deep sense of disappointment. How could Desmond change so suddenly, despite everything they had shared? After all, he was the one who had taken her innocence. A few minutes later, she was summoned to the living room where Baba, Desmond, his mother and his siblings were gathered. "Desmond, this lady came here months ago, claiming that you impregnated her. Is that true?" Baba's voice was stern as he questioned his son. Desmond paused, his head hanging low. "I only slept with her. I didn't know she would get pregnant," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Baba's tone softened, but his words were firm. "Well, she is now your responsibility, even if you say you're not ready for marriage yet." A few weeks later, Desmond returned to his station, leaving her with only 200 naira. That afternoon, she was in the kitchen, exhausted from the day's chores. She knew that if she didn't prepare something before Mama returned from the market, she would be in for a barrage of harsh words. As she put the pot on the fire, Shola, Desmond's younger brother, walked into the kitchen. "Where's my food?" he demanded, his tone impatient. "Please, give me an hour to make it. It's not ready yet," she pleaded. Shola's face twisted in anger. "All you know how to do is spread your legs for men at your age. What have you been doing all day?" he thundered. Her patience snapped. "I won't have you talk to me like that. Be patient and let me make your meal, and if you can't wait, you can make it yourself," she retorted, her voice shaking with anger. Shola, enraged, slapped her. Instinctively, she slapped him back, and a fight broke out in the kitchen. Shola pushed her down, grabbed a piece of firewood, and began hitting her until she passed out. When she woke up, she was in the hospital, having been operated on. She had given birth to twin babies, a boy and a girl. A week later, she was discharged only to learn from Ophir, a family member, that Shola had been in police custody for the past week, released only the day before. Even Mama hadn't mentioned anything about it. "That's because Dad warned her not to bother you with anything anymore," Ophir explained. When her children were 10 months old, Baba called her into his room. He handed her Desmond's address and some transport fare, urging her to visit him. Since she had given birth, Desmond had only sent letters and hadn't bothered to visit his children. A few days later, she packed her bag, took her kids, and headed to Desmond's base. Upon arriving at the military barracks, an army officer escorted them to Desmond's flat. She was exhausted. Her only thought was to bathe the kids and herself, and then rest. But when she saw ladies' shoes by the door, she hesitated, unsure if it was really his flat. The officer knocked on the door, and when Desmond stepped outside, his face paled with shock. "Ajanigo," he exclaimed before quickly closing the door behind him. "What are you doing here? How did you get here?" he questioned, his tone sharp. "Is that how you welcome your kids and their mother into your home?" she asked, her voice trembling. Desmond reached into his pocket, counted out some naira notes, and handed them to her. "Go back home. I'll visit by the end of the month," he said coldly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Without even letting us in?" she asked, her voice cracking. A woman's voice echoed from inside the flat, and she appeared at the door. "Who is she?" the woman asked, turning to Desmond. "She's my sister from the village. I've already given her money to go back home." Desmond lied. She stood there, shocked and dumbfounded, as her children began to cry out of hunger. Desmond took the other woman by the hand, and they went back inside, leaving her outside. "How can someone just show up unannounced like this? Even if he's your brother, don't you know how to write a letter?" the girlfriend muttered as they disappeared behind the door. She refused to leave. Instead, she sat in front of the flat, breastfeeding her kids, tears streaming down her face. Despair overwhelmed her as she considered abandoning her children and running away. But thoughts of the future held her back. Would Desmond be able to care for them? Or should she just end her suffering altogether? An hour later, Desmond came out of the flat again, shocked to see them still there. "Are you still here? Please take them and go back home. I'll come visiting by month end," he said, his frustration evident. She stood up, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Are you this cruel? This is your first time seeing your twins, and you show no remorse." "I don't have time for this. By the time I return from work, you should be gone," he ordered before storming off. She looked at her sobbing children, then sat back down to breastfeed them.
She considered using the money Desmond had given her to buy food, but she was too heartbroken to decide anything. As she sat there, a lady officer walked past them. She greeted the woman with her head down, not wanting her to see the tears in her eyes. The officer paused, looking at her closely, then turned back. "Madam, is everything okay?" the officer asked. "No, ma'am," she replied, her voice barely audible. "You can talk to me. These children are too young to be out in this scorching sun, and it's not healthy for you either. What are you doing here? Are you here to see someone?" the officer pressed. Slowly, she began to explain everything. To her surprise, the officer's eyes filled with tears. She had never imagined a military woman could be so compassionate. The officer scooped up the children in her arms and asked her to come with them. Grateful and relieved, she picked up her bag and followed the officer to her flat. There, she and the children were bathed, fed, and made comfortable. For the first time in a long while, she felt a semblance of peace. The officer shared her own story, revealing that she had once been married, but was cast out when she couldn't conceive. She had joined the military and remained unmarried since then. Days passed, and they settled into the officer's flat. On the 5th day, they ran out of sugar, and she decided to go out and buy some. On her way back, she passed by Desmond's flat again. His girlfriend was sitting outside sipping juice and reading a magazine. She greeted the woman, but there was no response. She ignored it and continued on her way. But the girlfriend wasn't done. As she passed by again, the woman grabbed her shirt, dragging her back. She staggered, struggling to regain her balance. "If you like, be Desmond's wife or sister. All I know is that he's mine now," the girlfriend taunted. "Congratulations then. I pray he marries you," she replied, trying to walk away. But the woman wasn't finished. She dragged her back again and warned her to take another route, claiming that the path in front of their flat was for military officers only. "You can't decide for me where to walk and where not to walk," she responded angrily. The girlfriend slapped her and she immediately slapped back. A fight ensued. The girlfriend grabbed her glass of juice and smashed it against her head, causing blood to pour down her face. People rushed over, some holding the girlfriend back while others urged her to take her crying children inside. Despite the pain and blood, she wouldn't have stopped fighting if not for her kids. She gathered them in her blood-stained arms and started to leave when Desmond arrived. His girlfriend feigned tears, claiming that she had started the fight. Without hesitation, Desmond approached and began beating her, completely ignoring the fact that she was holding their children. Neighbors intervened, separating them and taking her back to the flat. One of them treated her wounds. Later that evening, the military woman returned and noticed her bandaged head. She asked how it happened, and after hearing the story, all she said was, "Okay." But a few minutes later, screams erupted from Desmond's flat. She ran outside to see what was happening. To her shock, she found the military woman standing in front of the flat, holding a horsewhip. Desmond and his girlfriend were sweating profusely, doing frog jumps while she whipped them relentlessly. No one dared to approach her, let alone beg her. Desmond's girlfriend was wailing, exhausted, but the fear of the whip kept her hopping. The woman was whipping them in turns, her anger palpable. Although I wanted to ask her to stop, I was too afraid to go near. "You both should kneel before Ajanigo and apologize, and never harass her again," the military woman ordered, her voice stern. "Desmond, you care less about her, so why are you and your girlfriend treating her as if she's not human? If you're no longer interested in her, then let her be. But I assure you, you will regret this someday. Now kneel before her and apologize." They both knelt hurriedly before Ajanigo, echoing in unison. "I'm sorry. I'm going inside now, but you both will hop 100 times more. No one leaves here. Keep hopping," she commanded. She then approached Ajanigo and gently picked up her children. "Let's go," she whispered. Ajanigo kept glancing back as they left, watching them still frog jumping on their own. Once inside the living room, Ajanigo knelt before the woman, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Ma," she said, her voice trembling. "Get up, that's okay," the woman said, helping her to her feet. "Enough of all these formalities. You can call me Auntie Sade." Ajanigo smiled through her tears. "Okay, Ma," she replied. The following day, Auntie Sade gave Ajanigo some money to go to the market and buy foodstuffs. As she walked, Ajanigo decided to pass by Desmond's flat. Desmond's girlfriend was outside, spreading clothes. Ajanigo admired her strength from afar, considering the punishment she had endured the day before. But as soon as the girlfriend saw Ajanigo, she abandoned the clothes and rushed toward her, shredding Ajanigo's clothes. Ajanigo stood still, not uttering a word. "You think I'm afraid of that prostitute who took you in?" she hissed. "I purposely came out today to spread these clothes, waiting for you. By the time I finish with you, you'll run away from here," she threatened, continuing to tear Ajanigo's clothes. Desmond opened the door and stood there, stunned, his mouth agape. "What are you doing?" he asked, walking toward her. "Do you know that the lady who accommodated her is my superior at the office? Have you forgotten what she did to us yesterday? Please, I don't want my madam's trouble. Stop shredding her clothes this minute." His girlfriend ignored him and continued tearing at the clothes. Desmond tried to stop her, but she started fighting him. Eventually, Desmond beat her, went inside, and brought out her belongings. Ajanigo watched, curious to see the outcome. "Please leave here. I no longer want anything to do with you," Desmond thundered. She stood there wailing and insulting him, while Ajanigo shook her head and left. She went inside to change her clothes, and by the time she came back out, the girlfriend was gone. Ajanigo didn't bother telling Auntie Sad what had happened. 2 weeks later, Ajanigo told Auntie Sade that she needed to go back home. Though Auntie Sade tried to convince her to stay, Ajanigo was determined to return home and inform Desmond's father of everything that had transpired. Understanding this, Auntie Sad gave her a large sum of money and told her to feel free to visit any time. The next day, Auntie Sad took Ajanigo and her children to the park. A few hours into the journey, their vehicle was attacked by robbers. The driver maneuvered into the bush, and as soon as he parked, all the passengers ran into the bush, abandoning their bags, including Ajanigo and her twins. She carried them and ran as fast as she could into the depths of the forest, eventually stopping in the middle of nowhere. Her children began to cry, and in her confusion, Ajanigo started crying too. "Who's there? What are you doing here?" a voice called out. Terrified, Ajanigo fell to her knees. "Please have mercy on us," she begged. A man emerged from the bushes. No, get up, please. I mean no harm. I'm only here to gather herbs. How did you get here?" he asked. Ajanigo explained everything, and the man kindly helped carry one of her twins and took them to his home. It was already 7 p.m. He gave them food, but as they were eating, Ajanigo overheard his wife expressing her concern. "Where exactly did you bring her from? You know the Oro festival, also known as the No Woman, No Stranger festival, started 2 nights ago, and strangers are forbidden from visiting anyone's home during this period." "I don't want the anger of the gods," she lamented. "Keep quiet. Are you the one who's going to tell the chief priest that I brought a stranger home? We took the back road, and nobody saw us. Just keep that mouth of yours shut," he thundered. "I don't want any trouble," his wife muttered. Ajanigo didn't know whether to run or stay because she was well aware of the Oro festival. Fear gripped her and she could no longer eat, but even if she decided to leave, where would she go? A few minutes later, the man showed her to a room where she could stay the night. About an hour later, the man's son came running into the compound, shouting, "Baba! Baba!" Ajanigo heard him from her room and grew more terrified. "What is it?" the man asked, his voice booming. "The Oro people are on their way here," the boy replied, panting. "Jesus," Ajanigo murmured under her breath. The man, his wife, and the rest of the family gathered outside the house, waiting for the Oro men. "Good evening to everyone," the Oro men greeted. Ajanigo could hear them from her room. She stood there, trembling, praying that her children would stay asleep. "We received information that you're harboring a stranger." "How true is that?" one of the Oro men inquired. "No, we are not," the man replied swiftly. "Yes, we are. Please, I don't want to die. My husband brought home a woman with her 2 children this morning, and I warned him, but he wouldn't listen," his wife lamented. "Your husband is aware of the Oro festival, yet he went against the culture and tradition of the land," said one of the Oro men. "Bring the stranger out here. She and her children shall be used as a sacrifice for the cleansing of the land. And as for you, for bringing her home, you shall face the consequences," said another Oro man. The man's son opened the door to Ajanigo's room suddenly. "Please come out. We don't want any trouble," Just carry your children and come out, he ordered. Ajanigo was already crying, frightened beyond measure. She begged him to take her instead and spare her children, but he refused. She carried her sleeping twins and went outside to see the Oro men dressed in red with palm fronds tied to their arms. One of them held a long staff. "Young lady, we are currently observing our Oro festival, and according to the customs and traditions of our land, a stranger is not welcome during this period. Anyone who tries to harbor a stranger will be sent to the great beyond, and the stranger will be sacrificed to the gods for protection and cleansing," he said, his face stern. Ajanigo fell to her knees, begging them. She told them all she had been through, but they showed no remorse. "What you've been through is none of our business. You only stand a chance of liberation if you're an indigene of our land. If not, nothing can be done," he said coldly. "Bring her and her children along," another Oro man commanded. Ajanigo was wailing, her tears mixing with the dirt on her face. She needed a miracle. "I don't believe my blood and that of my children will be used as a sacrifice," she prayed silently. One of the Oro men helped her up, and she carried her now awake children in her arms. As they took her away, Ajanigo kept looking back, hoping the man and his wife would help. But after only a few steps, the Oro man with the staff pointed it at the man who had taken her in. Immediately there was a flash of lightning, and the man fell lifeless to the ground. Terrified, Ajanigo held her children tightly as they continued walking. They finally arrived at a shrine, and she was forced to kneel, her children in her arms. Ajanigo continued crying, her prayers silent but desperate. The native doctor approached with a calabash, attempting to touch her forehead, but a force flung him aside. "Where did you bring her from?" he thundered. "It's the stranger the herbalist brought home," one of the Oro men replied, his eyes wide with shock. "Take her away from here. She's not a stranger. She's an indigene," the native doctor shouted. As soon as she was forced out of town alongside her children and escorted to the outskirts, she found herself unable to comprehend the situation. How could a girl from Kogi State be considered an indigene of a town in the West? Was this somehow God's way of liberating her? The people who had escorted her turned back, and she hurried away, shivering with fear that they might change their minds and call her back. She doubled her pace, constantly thanking God as she walked through the lonely road in the dark. She walked a long distance and eventually arrived at another village. The first building she saw was a Catholic church. Fortunately, the entrance door was open, so she went inside with her children and headed straight to the altar, where she knelt and thanked God for the miracle. The next morning, around 6 a.m., people started arriving for morning mass. They were shocked to see her there, including the priest, as they had heard she had spent the night in the church. She looked haggard and dirty, and when she explained everything to them, they took pity on her. They gathered money to help her continue her journey. One of them took her to his home so she could freshen up with her children before she left for the park to proceed on her journey home. She arrived home safely later that evening, only to find a group of people gathered, looking mournful, including Desmond. She was stunned and dumbfounded. What happened? She wondered to herself. Ophir came running towards them and helped carry one of the twins. "What's happening?" she asked curiously. "Daddy is dead," Ophir said amid tears. She was stunned and in great shock. "Which daddy?" she queried, but Ophir couldn't even answer. At that moment it felt as if the whole world had abandoned her. How could Baba have done this to her, leaving her all alone to decide her fate? She wailed and wailed, but her cries couldn't bring Baba back. She managed to walk through the crowd to her room, but the padlock had been changed. "Auntie, wait, let me go to Mom to get the keys," Ophir said hastily, leaving to fetch them. She returned a few minutes later, scratching her head. "Ophir, where is the key?" she asked. "Auntie, she stuttered. "What is it?" she asked again. "Brother Desmond came home with his girlfriend yesterday, and Mom gave your room to her," Ophir revealed. "What?" she exclaimed. "I knew it. Now that Baba is gone, my suffering has just begun." "Where do I go from here now?" she lamented. "Auntie, let me go with you to the pastor's house. I'm sure he'll allow you to stay for a while, considering the fact that he was Daddy's friend," Ophir suggested. She was still wailing, already predicting how her future would unfold. As she was lost in thought, Desmond's girlfriend, whom Auntie Sade had dealt with before, walked in. She looked at her from head to toe and let out a slow laugh. You think that Desmond would no longer have anything to do with me simply because you saw him throw out my things, right? Well, let me shock you. I'm not only going to be his wife, I'm a few weeks pregnant, my dear, she said, rubbing her tummy and grinning. I knew the moment I saw you that you weren't his sister. But you know what? If I don't marry him while you're still alive, I will marry him after your death, she threatened. Then you're never going to marry my brother because Auntie Ajanigo here is not dying anytime soon. It's obvious you're the one who will soon die of heartbreak because you don't know what will soon befall you. Ophir thundered back. Desmond's girlfriend approached, raising her hand to slap Ophir, but Ophir quickly grabbed her hand. Not on your life, husband snatcher. Don't worry, when it happens, I'll buy you a handkerchief to wipe those miserable tears of yours, Ophir retorted, then turned to Ajanigo. Let's go, she ordered. Ajanigo, still in shock, followed her like a dummy, unable to believe what had just transpired. They arrived at the pastor's house, and without hesitation, Ajanigo was accommodated. Baba was to be buried in 3 days. The following day, she returned to the house to help with the preparations. She approached the women, hoping to lend a hand, but a voice from behind interrupted her. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here. Don't even think about touching anything, just get out, Desmond thundered. Everyone started staring at her, and she became embarrassed. She left in a hurry, sobbing. The next day, she was summoned by the elders, along with Desmond, his girlfriend, and the rest of the family members. Good day, everyone, one of the elders greeted. He then turned to Ajanigo. My name is Uday. I am Desmond's father's younger brother. I am here to reveal all of my late brother's wishes on his deathbed. For those who might doubt my words, I had everything my late brother said recorded on my phone. Let's play it, he said, tapping his phone. Good day to you all. You are hearing my voice, so there's no need to doubt anything. Ajanigo, my daughter, I greet you. Though I didn't tell you, I visited your house some time ago with Uday, my brother, to see your family members so we could pay your bride price. But your mother chased us out, telling us to do whatever we wanted with you. On that note, Desmond, my son, you will take Ajanigo as your wife, and there is no going back. Any other woman you bring home for marriage shall not be accepted. Ajanigo is the first and shall remain the only woman you will marry, which must be done before my burial. You must take her with you to your base. Failure to do this, you shall not partake in my burial rites until you marry her first. Take good care of yourselves, the voice note concluded. Everyone was stunned, turning and looking at each other. Desmond's girlfriend was already in tears. Ophir stood up, walked over to her and handed her a handkerchief. As I said before, please take this to wipe your tears, Ophir said. The girlfriend paused, looked at Ophir from head to toe, and then continued crying. The only place Ajanigo had ever seen what Baba spoke through was at Auntie Said's place. She never knew it could be used to record someone's voice. Auntie Said would pick it up whenever it rang, speak through it, and the person on the other end would respond without seeing each other. Hope these white people won't end up selling us one day without our consent, Ajanigo thought to herself. So, my people, the marriage rites will be carried out as soon as possible to enable Desmond to partake in the burial rites tomorrow, Uncle Ude announced. He then told Shola to gather some elders and the pastor as well. Desmond and Ajanigo were traditionally married, followed by a marriage blessing that same day. I just hope I don't end up regretting all of this, Ajanigo thought to herself. After everything was done, Desmond was asked to give Ajanigo a hug, which he did while looking away. She didn't even bother to raise a hand for the hug because giving him a hug wasn't her problem. Her major concern was how he would treat her and the kids when they returned to his base together. As much emphasis was placed on the fact that he must take them with him. She didn't want to consent to marrying him either, but with Baba gone, where else would she and the kids stay? She begged to stay at the pastor's house until they were ready to leave for Desmond's base, which everyone agreed to. Later that night, Ophir ran straight to the pastor's house and into Ajanigo's room. Ophir, what is it? What happened? Ajanigo asked in fear. Auntie, come with me. There's something I want you to see, Ophir said, dragging her hand. Her children were asleep, so she asked the pastor's wife to watch over them, and she was happy to help. Ajanigo kept asking Ophir what was going on, but Ophir insisted that she just come first. They arrived home to find Desmond's girlfriend outside with her bags. Ajanigo turned to Ophir. "Is she leaving?" she asked. "Auntie, she said she saw Baba's ghost in her room, so she ran outside, screaming and weeping," Ophir said, laughing hard. "That's impossible," Ajanigo said, stunned. "So Mom helped her bring out her things and asked her to leave for now. She said she would send for her later," Ophir revealed. Desmond's girlfriend ended up leaving that night, and Ajanigo returned to the pastor's house. She lay in bed, pondering everything that had happened until she fell asleep. On the day of the burial, Ajanigo couldn't eat anything because her heart was too heavy. After the funeral service, she went into the kitchen to find something to eat, but found nothing. Some of the people who came for the burial had given cash gifts to her children, so she went to buy a few cups of rice to cook. She was in the kitchen making a fire when Mama stepped in. "Who's that? What are you doing there?" Mama questioned. "Mama, good day. It's me. The kids and I haven't eaten today, so I bought some raw rice and I'm about to cook it," Ajanigo answered. "You bought rice? From where? So you went and fetched my rice without telling me?" Mama queried. "No, Mama, it's not yours." "I bought it," Ajanigo cried out. "With what money? Look at this miserable thing. The man who used to pamper you like an egg is no more. Now it's my turn. You haven't seen anything yet." "Give me that rice and get out of here," Mama said, grabbing the bag of rice and leaving. Ajanigo immediately burst into tears. She carried her children and gently walked out of the kitchen, heading straight to the pastor's house. His wife was around, and Ajanigo begged her for some food to at least feed the kids. The pastor's wife arrived with 2 plates of rice and a bottle of soft drink, but Ajanigo was too heartbroken to eat. Desmond's mother had called her miserable. Was she? The woman didn't believe Ajanigo even had a penny. Why would she, when everything Ajanigo wore for the burial had been given to her by Ophir? Ajanigo kept thinking about everything, unable to believe that her own parents had chased her out to suffer like this. She stayed indoors for the rest of the day, unable to go out. Desmond was on leave, so he stayed home for about 3 more weeks after the burial. Finally, he came to see them at the pastor's house for the first time. He was there to inform them that they would be leaving for his base the next day. After he left, Ajanigo went to the pastor and told him she wasn't comfortable with the idea, but he assured her that she would be fine. The next day, they were set to leave. Ophir came to Ajanigo and hugged her tightly. "You're the best sister-in-law ever," she whispered. Ajanigo looked at her with teary eyes. "You're just like Baba. May you be happy all your life, Ophir," she prayed. They finally left for the park in a tricycle. Ophir and Ajanigo kept waving at each other until they both disappeared from sight. They arrived at the park and boarded a bus. Desmond didn't even help carry any of the children until they arrived at their destination. A total stranger offered to help, but Ajanigo told him not to bother. Her children were her source of joy and happiness. She never got tired of carrying them. When they arrived home, Desmond brought out the key to his house and was about to insert it in the keyhole when the door opened. Lo and behold, it was his girlfriend.
Please tell me, are you enjoying the story? If so, tell me what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel, please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something, even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me what lessons have you learned from this story. Trust me, these are situations that most people actually go through. I'm sure some of you that are watching this story have actually gone through this situation. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you dealt with a situation that you were faced with.
Desmond's voice trembled as he confronted the situation. "Amanda, what are you doing here? How did you get here?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Amanda, standing defiantly by the door, responded sharply, "That's a rhetorical question. So you think you can bring this woman into this house? It's not possible." Her voice rose with anger. Desmond tried to reason with her, his tone pleading, "You know it's not my fault. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. Please, just go back to your mother's place first. I'll come there tomorrow and we'll talk about this." Amanda was resolute. "I'm not going anywhere. The only person who should leave here is her," she said, pointing directly at Ajanigo. "I can't go and stay elsewhere with my unborn child. You better find her a place to stay." Ajanigo, hurt and frustrated, spoke up. "You can't stay elsewhere with the child in your womb, but you expect me and the kids to leave? Amanda looked Ajanigo up and down before hissing dismissively. Desmond, growing more agitated, shouted, "Ajanigo, please stay out of this. Stay completely out of this." The tension was overwhelming, and Ajanigo, feeling irritated and disrespected, shook her head and decided to leave. She gathered her children and headed straight to Auntie Sade's flat. As she walked away, Desmond called after her, "Ajanigo, where are you going?" But she ignored him. When Ajanigo arrived at Auntie Sade's flat, she knocked on the door. A man in his late 30s answered, and they exchanged greetings. "Please, sir, I'm here to see Auntie Sade," she said politely. The man looked puzzled. "Auntie Sade? I'm sorry, I don't know who you're talking about. Maybe you should check the next flat." "No, sir, this is her flat," Ajanigo insisted. "Oh, I'm sorry, I moved in here last week. The former occupant has been transferred out of town," the man explained. Ajanigo's world came crashing down. "The only good person left for me in this place is out of town. I'm finished," she thought to herself, tears streaming down her face. The man noticed her distress and asked gently, "Is there a problem?" Ajanigo could only manage a weak response. "No, sir." As she carried her children back to Desmond's flat, she felt utterly defeated. When she arrived, Amanda had already gone inside, leaving Desmond outside with her bag. The pain was too much for Ajanigo to bear, and she couldn't bring herself to speak. Desmond approached her softly. "Please come with me. There's somewhere we need to go." Ajanigo followed him in silence, and they soon arrived at a small house. Desmond spoke with the landlord privately, and they were given one of the rooms. It was just an empty room, with no bed or chairs. Nothing. Ajanigo opened her bag, spread one of her wrappers on the floor, and laid her children down. Desmond left, returning a few minutes later with a plate of food. "Here," he said, extending the plate to her. Ajanigo's anger boiled over. "Put it on my head, you ungrateful human. I gave you my heart, my time, and my virginity. Yet you treat me this way, all because of that call girl you call a girlfriend," she thundered. "How dare you call her a call girl? What's your choice of words?" Desmond yelled back. "Isn't she a call girl? Compound fool," Ajanigo retorted, her voice full of fury. Desmond, enraged, approached her intending to slap her, but Ajanigo grabbed the plate of food and threw it at him. He stared at her in disbelief. "You think this is the Ajanigo you used to know? You've dragged the tail of a tigress. Enough of my calmness," she shouted. Desmond left the room in a hurry, and Ajanigo broke down in tears. "I don't want to be this way because of a man. This is not me. God, please restore my sanity," she prayed silently. Later, as she drifted off to sleep, she had a vivid dream. She was crying, sitting somewhere when a man dressed in white approached her. It was Baba. "Nigo, my child, I'm so sorry for all you're going through. I want to assure you that even in death, you're still very precious to me. Pack your bags and carry your kids." A continuous knock on the door jolted Ajanigo awake. It had all been a dream. The room was dark, and she quickly checked her watch. It was a few minutes past 11 p.m. Thankfully, there was electricity. The knocking persisted. "Who is it?" she asked, summoning the courage to speak. "It's Desmond," came the reply. Ajanigo hissed, contemplating going back to sleep, but a nagging thought made her open the door. Desmond didn't wait for her to fully open it before squeezing himself inside. "Ajanigo, please, we need to go back to the house," he implored. "God forbid, I can't go back to that house with you." "Go back to your lunatic girlfriend," she retorted. "Please come with me. Look, we saw Baba's ghost in the bedroom. He didn't say anything to me, but I already understood the message," Desmond explained, his voice shaking. Ajanigo let out a thunderous laugh. "My sweet Baba, even in death, you still fight for me," she said, sitting back down on her wrapper. "I'm going nowhere, officer," she declared, looking Desmond straight in the eye. Desmond fell to his knees, begging her. The memory of her dream flashed in Ajanigo's mind, and she sighed. She got up carrying one of her children and was about to lift the other when Desmond, for the first time, took the child into his arms. Together they returned to Desmond's flat and spent the night there. The next day, Ajanigo was outside sweeping when Auntie Sade's former neighbor's children passed by. They exchanged greetings and asked about her kids. Desmond had left some money for her to go to the market that morning. After getting herself and the kids ready, Ajanigo headed to the market. Upon arrival, she saw Amanda approaching with her friend. Trying to avoid her, Ajanigo attempted to dodge, but Amanda deliberately bumped into her. "What's your problem? Do you have a problem with your sight?" Ajanigo snapped. "You used juju to summon Desmond's father's ghost, right? You think I'm going to give up? I don't give up easily, especially considering that I'm carrying his child. I will keep troubling you until you leave this town," Amanda threatened. Ajanigo ignored her and tried to leave with her children, but Amanda and her friend started attacking her. Before Ajanigo knew what was happening, they had torn her shirt. In the midst of the commotion, Auntie Sade's neighbor's children arrived. "Mummy twins, what's the matter?" they asked. Ajanigo explained everything, and the children asked Amanda to leave her alone. When Amanda refused and continued the assault, the neighbors ran into a nearby grocery store, grabbed 2 canes, and returned to flog Amanda and her friend mercilessly. People gathered, trying to intervene, but the neighbors wouldn't stop. Amanda and her friend fled as fast as they could, with the neighbors chasing them until they finally left the market. Concerned bystanders came to comfort Ajanigo. One of them even offered to help her buy the foodstuffs she needed. Later that night, Desmond returned home with a stern expression. Ajanigo served his food, but he rejected it. "What's wrong with you? Is everything okay?" she asked, concerned. "Ajanigo, why did you tell my boss's children to beat up Amanda?" he demanded. "Me? I never told anyone to beat her up, and I didn't even know they were your boss's children," Ajanigo replied, bewildered. "If not for Daddy's sake, I wouldn't have allowed you to stay here. Just leave Amanda alone. Stop causing her problems. I understand that you and I were once in love, but what, Desmond? I gave you my heart, my all, and this is how you repay me. My family rejected me because of you. I've been through hell trying to raise these children on my own, and this is how you treat me," Ajanigo said, her voice choked with tears. "I'm sorry for everything you've been through, but my heart belongs to another now. Is there any way you can help appease Daddy's spirit so I can marry Amanda as a second wife?" Desmond asked, his tone almost pleading. "You just sounded like a fool. What do you take me for? Go ahead and marry her for all I care, but from now on I'll only live here for the sake of having a roof over my head. There will be nothing between us," Ajanigo said, sobbing. "Okay then," Desmond replied coldly. Ajanigo entered her room with a heavy heart, sat on the bed, and watched her sleeping children as tears streamed down her face. She whispered, "Baba, I never bargained for all of this, but please, leave Desmond and his girlfriend alone to do whatever they want with each other, please. I have accepted my fate." They started living in the same house, but like roommates with nothing more than that. Sometimes when Ajanigo went out, she would see Desmond and Amanda at a restaurant or bar. Each time Amanda saw her, she would get up, sit on Desmond's lap, rub his stomach, or start dancing, even if there was no music playing. Desmond couldn't bring Amanda home, so he rented an apartment for her nearby. Most of the time, Desmond would stay at Amanda's place for weeks, leaving only a small amount of money for Ajanigo and the children. Ajanigo was grateful for having a roof over her head, so she began to tolerate his other excesses. Ajanigo knew she needed to look good, provide new clothes for her children, and earn her own money, so she applied for a cleaning job at a nearby school. 2 years passed, and Ajanigo was still working as a cleaner. She had enrolled her children in the same school, and apart from the meager feeding money that Desmond provided, he showed little care for them. Ajanigo's salary was now used to pay her children's school fees. Amanda had given birth to a girl, and 2 weeks later, Desmond informed Ajanigo that he had been transferred to another state and would be relocating there with Amanda. "What about me?" Ajanigo asked, her voice trembling. "I'll find a smaller house for you and the kids," Desmond replied, then left. Ajanigo stood there, devastated. She had nowhere to go, no one to run to, and now she was saddled with the responsibility of taking care of her children all alone. She wept bitterly, knowing that her job wasn't enough to provide for them. The little money she earned was used to pay for her children's school fees. A few weeks later, Desmond came to the house and moved out some belongings without saying a word. Ajanigo sat on her bed with her children, sobbing quietly so they wouldn't know she had been crying. When Desmond finished packing, he came into the room and dropped some money for them. "I found a place for you to stay. A friend will come and take you there later. but you need to start packing your things, because the new occupant will soon be here. I'll send you money from time to time through my friend, and you can take the few things left." "Take care," he said and left. Ajanigo's heart was shattered, but she knew she needed to be strong for her children. She got up and started packing their things. A few hours later, Desmond's friend came and took them to their new place. 6 months passed, and Desmond only sent money twice. In addition to her cleaning job, Ajanigo got a job as a sales girl. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to feed her and the kids. She saved enough money to start learning fashion design, even though her boss was harsh and wouldn't allow her to bring her children to work. Ajanigo didn't let that stop her from pursuing her dreams. She begged her children's teacher to watch over them until 3 p.m. So she would clean the school early in the morning with her children, leave them there, and then go for her apprenticeship. She usually closed from work by 3 p.m. as agreed with her boss. Desmond's friend visited them from time to time, bringing foodstuffs and even paying their rent without expecting anything in return. He was truly a godsend. 2 years later, Ajanigo finished her apprenticeship. Her boss didn't want her to leave because she was the best student she had ever had. Ajanigo was so skilled in making clothes that some of the customers specifically requested her work. However, she refused to stay and work for her boss. Instead, she started hustling to get a sewing machine. To her surprise one day, Desmond's friend gifted her a sewing machine. Ajanigo fell to her knees, praying and thanking God. She hadn't expected such a gift from anyone, though she knew God would provide it. She just hadn't anticipated it would happen so soon. "Thank you so much, sir. I don't even know what we've done to deserve such kindness," she said with teary eyes. "Ajanigo, please get up. It's nothing," he replied. "I decided to gift you this because you're a woman who doesn't give up. I admire that. Despite everything Desmond put you through, you never let it weigh you down. You kept hustling for yourself and the kids without compromising your integrity. I really respect that. And thank you so much for never asking me to repay you with my body, despite all you've done for us over the years. Your kind is rare, sir," she said. "It's okay, please get up," he said, helping her to her feet. Ajanigo got up and prepared a delicious meal for him. He had proven to be a true friend, her God-sent angel. Ajanigo began making clothes for people from her home. Renting a shop was too expensive, so she decided to work from home until she could save enough money to rent one. 3 months later, on a sunny afternoon, Desmond's friend came to Ajanigo's house with a very beautiful young lady. Ajanigo couldn't see the woman's face clearly from the window, but her physique suggested she was stunning. Ajanigo opened the door as soon as she heard the first knock, and she was right. The woman was beautiful and elegant. Ajanigo stood by the door, smiling sheepishly. "Good afternoon, Mom," the woman greeted. "Oh, I'm so sorry, please come in," Ajanigo replied, snapping out of her daze. "Please sit. Good afternoon." "Mummy twins, you're smiling like this. What's going on?" Desmond's friend teased. "Who wouldn't smile at such beauty?" Ajanigo teased back. The woman chuckled. "Well, her name is Eva, and she's my woman," Desmond's friend said, looking lovingly into Eva's eyes. "I go love oh," Ajanigo muttered. They both laughed. "Where are the kids?" he asked. "They're asleep," Ajanigo replied. "Anyway, mummy twins, we've come to specially invite you to our wedding," Desmond's friend said, presenting an invitation card. Ajanigo jumped up. "It's a lie," she exclaimed as she quickly glanced over the card. "Wow, you're from Akwa Ibom?" she asked, looking at Eva. "Yes, Mom," Eva replied, smiling. "Akwa Ibom people are known to be very neat." "Wow, I'm so happy for you both. A very big congratulations," Ajanigo said, sitting down with a broad smile. "Mummy twins, you and the kids must attend," Desmond's friend insisted. "Ah, from here to Akwa Ibom? I would really love to attend, but I don't have the transport fare," Ajanigo lamented. "You don't have to worry about that. A vehicle will be provided to convey everyone free of charge, and I'll also book a hotel for you and the kids," he assured her. Ajanigo was overjoyed. "Wow, that's great. I'll surely be there," she said, grinning. "Oh, nice," he replied. "Excuse me, please," Ajanigo said and left. She went into the kitchen to prepare potatoes and tomato sauce. About an hour later, after they had eaten, Desmond's friend and Eva left. Ajanigo was very happy for them, especially for Desmond's friend. He deserved all the happiness in the world. The day before the wedding, Ajanigo and her children left for Akwa Ibom. Desmond's friend was overjoyed to see them and took them to the hotel where they lodged, ordering whatever they wanted to eat before leaving. On the wedding day, Ajanigo dressed in her best. While her clothes weren't expensive, she and the kids looked presentable. They left for the church service and sat inside. After a few minutes, Ajanigo turned and saw Amanda looking at her from afar. Amanda was sitting with Desmond, but she didn't look like the Amanda Ajanigo used to know. She looked old and unkempt. Ajanigo quickly turned away, ignoring Amanda's gaze. After the church service, they went to the reception and sat under a canopy. "Hi," Ajanigo heard from behind. She was about to respond without looking, but then decided to turn around. To her shock, it was Desmond holding one of her children. "You look beautiful," he said, smiling. "If you don't let go of that girl's hand this minute, I'll show you what Kogi madness looks like," Ajanigo thundered, pulling off one of her shoes. Desmond quickly withdrew his hand. "Come on, Ajanigo, it's just a harmless high," he said. "You must be abnormal for saying that. Will you disappear from here before I decorate your body with my teeth?" she yelled. Desmond turned and left without another word. Ajanigo quickly picked up her daughter and made her sit on her lap, while she held her son very close. It was time for the presentation of gifts. People from different places were stepping forward to present theirs, and among them a woman caught her eye. Someone who looked strangely familiar. She quickly stood up, holding her children by the hand, driven by curiosity. She made her way to where the woman was sitting, and as she got closer, she couldn't believe her eyes. It was indeed her. Tears welled up and began to stream down her cheeks, tears of joy. She moved a little closer, pausing again as the emotions overwhelmed her. "Auntie Shade," she called out. The woman turned and saw her. Immediately she jumped up, rushing over with excitement, screaming in joy. People around them began to stare, but neither of them cared. They were too happy to see each other. Auntie Shade lifted her off the ground with surprising strength, her feet dangling in the air. When she finally set her down, they both burst into laughter. A military woman is always a military woman after all. "Ajanigo," Auntie Shade exclaimed, her eyes scanning her from head to toe. She bent down to scoop up Ajanigo's kids into her arms. "Is this really you? I don't understand. What happened?" she asked, looking deeply into Ajanigo's eyes. "I don't understand, Ma," Ajanigo replied, smiling through her tears. "You look so good. Did you end up settling with Desmond or what?" Auntie Shade queried. "Settle with Desmond? God forbid." "Auntie Shade, a lot has happened. All I want to do now is thank God that I survived," Ajanigo replied, her tone turning somber. Auntie Shade gently placed the children down and took one of their hands. Come, tell me about it," she said, pulling Ajanigo by the hand. Ajanigo held her other child's hand, and together they followed Auntie Shade. She opened the door of a car and gestured for Ajanigo to sit. "Auntie Shade, you have a car now?" Ajanigo asked in surprise. "Oh yes, I do. I also got a promotion," Auntie Shade replied, grinning. "Wow, I'm so happy for you, Ma. You haven't seen anything yet. God will continue to shower you with unmerited blessings for your kind heart." Ajanigo prayed earnestly. "Amen," Auntie Shade responded. They settled into the car. "Now tell me about it. What really happened to you?" Auntie Shade asked. Ajanigo sighed deeply and began to recount everything that had transpired. Auntie Shade listened, her eyes welling up with tears. "You've been through so much for someone your age. So what's your plan now?" "Desmond's friend is married now and may not be able to help you anymore," Auntie Shade remarked. "Well, I make clothes from home for now. We'll survive on that. My main problem now is getting a shop," Ajanigo explained. "God will send help," Auntie Shade prayed. "Amen, Ma," Ajanigo replied. Auntie Shade opened her bag and took out her phone. "Do you even have a phone?" she asked. "No, I don't. But I'm hoping to get one soon after I've secured a shop," Ajanigo answered with a smile. "Seriously? You need a good phone so you can take pictures of your designs," Auntie Shade said, looking at her thoughtfully. "I can't afford that one yet," Ajanigo replied, laughing. Auntie Shade sighed. She was about to put her phone back in her bag when she noticed her ring finger. "Oh, I didn't tell you, I got married a few months back." "I was so eager to hear your story that I forgot to mention it," she said, smiling. "What?" "I saw the ring but didn't know how to ask without sounding offensive." "Congratulations, Auntie Shade. I'm so happy with how God has blessed you all around," Ajanigo said, giving her a hug. "Ajanigo, what you don't know is that God blesses everyone who comes into contact or has any form of relationship with you." "I don't know if you've noticed," Auntie Shade said, looking into her eyes. Ajanigo stammered, "Well, I haven't really noticed that," she chuckled. "My husband is around for the wedding too. He met an old friend, so they're catching up," Auntie Shade said, laughing. "I'll see how I can help in my own little way. Before we leave, you'll write down your address for me," Auntie Shade instructed. "Okay, Ma," Ajanigo agreed. Auntie Shade then pulled out a large sum of money and handed it to Ajanigo and her kids. Ajanigo was stunned, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. She dropped to her knees. "God alone will reward you, Ma," Ajanigo said through tears. "Get up, please. It's nothing. I'm not asking you to go and rent a shop with this. Just get some food stuff and change your wardrobe first. God will give you a shop." Auntie Shade smiled. Ajanigo nodded, still overwhelmed. As they exited the car, a man began approaching them. Ajanigo's heart skipped a beat. "What is this man doing here?" she thought to herself. He walked closer, and as he did, he couldn't take his eyes off her. "Ajanigo," he called out. Auntie Shade looked at him in surprise. "You know her?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Ajanigo ignored him, but Auntie Shade looked at her intently. "Ajanigo, do you know him?" Auntie Shade asked again. "He's my dad," Ajanigo replied, already on the verge of tears. "What? I don't understand." "Like, how? He's my husband," Auntie Shade said, confused. "What? That's impossible," Ajanigo exclaimed. The man looked into Ajanigo's eyes. "I'm not your father, Ajanigo," he said quietly. "Of course you'd say that. You and my mother chased me out when I needed you both the most. Well, I no longer consider you as family either. You're both out of my life for good," Ajanigo shouted, grabbing her children's hands, ready to leave. "Ajanigo, I'm serious," the man said, his eyes pleading. "Your mother confessed to me shortly after you left that you're not mine," he continued. At that moment, it felt as if Ajanigo's spirit left her body. Her heartbeat quickened, and she began sweating profusely. "What is all this? Just when I thought I could finally have peace of mind," she sobbed. "Is this a joke or what?" she asked, looking between the man and Auntie Shade, who stood there utterly confused. "It's not a joke. She said she had you with a Yoruba man years ago when I was traveling. We're divorced now, though. We've gone our separate ways, and she has since moved back to her father's house. I met Shade here after I divorced your mother, and we got married a few months ago," the man explained. Just when Ajanigo thought life was beginning to smile at her again, this happened. She cried. Auntie Shade pulled her into a tight hug, and Ajanigo couldn't even find the words to speak. "I'm so sorry," Auntie Shade whispered. Ajanigo nodded, still in shock. "Ajanigo, I'm so sorry for all you've been through. Your mother suggested that we throw you out when we found out about your pregnancy. It wasn't my intention, but she ended up poisoning my mind," the man revealed. "What?" "No, this is too much to bear." Ajanigo lamented through her tears. She took her kids and left them behind, with Auntie Shade also in tears. Ajanigo returned home, pondering the whole situation for some time. She decided to move on, but kept in mind that one day she would seek out her mother to learn the truth. She continued sewing from home, using the proceeds to care for herself and her children. A few months later, one afternoon, while she was lying down, she heard a knock on the door. "Who is that?" she called out, but there was no response. Then she heard the knock again. She got up and went to open the door, and to her surprise, it was Auntie Shade. Ajanigo screamed and hugged her tightly. "Wait, I didn't write down my address the last time we met, so how did you find me?" Ajanigo asked. "Desmond's friend gave me your address. What are you doing?" "Where are the kids?" Auntie Shade asked. "Nothing, just lying down. The kids are in school. Please come in," Ajanigo replied excitedly. "Okay then, no, please come with me. Let's go somewhere," Auntie Shade said. Ajanigo quickly locked her door, put on her shoes, and went after her friend. You mean you drove all the way here from your base? She asked, surprised to see the car. Yes, oh, call me Superwoman, her friend responded, and they both laughed. Ajanigo had two neighbors who constantly mocked her situation. They would sit in front of the house and gossip from morning till evening, every day. Whenever they saw her, they would whisper to each other and laugh hysterically. But on this particular day, when they saw her with Auntie Shade, they were stunned. They knew Auntie Shade as a high-ranking military officer and could never have imagined that Ajanigo knew someone of her status. "Welcome, Ma," they greeted hastily, bowing their heads in respect. Auntie Shade acknowledged their greeting and they walked past the neighbors to her car before driving off. They soon arrived at a large, beautiful shop with glass doors. "One day, I'll own a shop as beautiful as this." "This place is too beautiful," Ajanigo remarked as they approached the shop, but Auntie Shade only nodded. When they arrived at the shop, Auntie Shade opened it. At first, Ajanigo thought they were there to meet someone. "Nigo, my angel, this is your shop," Auntie Shade said, raising the keys and placing them in Ajanigo's palms. Before she could say anything, Auntie Shade opened her bag, pulled out a big phone, and handed it over to her. Ajanigo fainted. "Ajanigo! Ajanigo!" she heard faintly as she began to regain consciousness. When she opened her eyes, she found herself on the floor with 4 other people standing around her. One held a bowl of water and another had a bottle of water. Her clothes were drenched. She looked up at Auntie Shade. "You scared me," Auntie Shade said, her voice trembling. Ajanigo burst into tears. "Auntie Shade, what have I done to deserve this kindness from you?" she asked, still crying. Auntie Shade bent down, gave her a tight hug, and helped her stand. Ajanigo's legs trembled as she stood, and she hugged Auntie Shade again. "Thank you so much, Ma. May God reward you," she said through her tears. "It's okay, Ajanigo. You're like the daughter I never had," Auntie Shade replied. Auntie Shade then brought out some money from her bag and gave it to the people who had helped revive Ajanigo. They thanked her and left. "This one that you fainted on seeing the shop, there's something some guys are supposed to deliver today, but I'll ask them to wait until tomorrow. Let me go back to my base first before you see it, so you won't faint again, oh," she teased. Ajanigo smiled. "What is it again?" she asked. "Just a few things for you," Auntie Shade replied. Ajanigo sighed. "You're an angel. Your heart is too pure and good. I don't even know how to thank you for your kindness. God will meet you at the point of your needs, and may you never know a better yesterday," she prayed. "Since the last time I met you until now, I can't even count how much God has blessed me by showing kindness to you and the kids. When you give, God has a way of multiplying it back to us. Besides, when you see someone in need, try as much as possible to always show them love and kindness. This world would be a better place if each and every one of us started helping the needy around us," Auntie Shade said. Ajanigo sighed and nodded. "So, I need to start going back now," Auntie Shade said, smiling. "To where? At this time of the day?" Ajanigo questioned. "Please, let's go to the house so you can wait until morning before going back." "It's getting late," she pleaded. "At least before 10 p.m. I'll reach." "Don't worry yourself," Auntie Shade assured her. "No, please, let's go to the house so you'll wait until morning," Ajanigo insisted. "As your lady pleases," Auntie Shade said, bowing her head, and they both laughed. They went to the kids' school first to pick them up before driving home. The neighbors were still there, and they greeted them, watching them closely until they stepped into Ajanigo's room. A few minutes later, Ajanigo went into the kitchen to prepare something for Auntie Shade to eat, as the kitchen was at the back of the house. The neighbors approached her. "Mummy twins, well done, oh," one of them greeted. "Is that woman your auntie?" the other inquired. Ajanigo looked at them, surprised by their sudden interest, as they had never initiated a friendly conversation before. "No, she's a friend," she replied, then continued with her task. "Wow, we know her. She used to work here," one of them said, but Ajanigo just nodded and ignored them. They stayed in the kitchen with her, discussing and laughing, but she continued to ignore them. After finishing her cooking, Ajanigo returned inside. After they had eaten, one of the neighbors came knocking on her door for the first time. When Ajanigo answered, she entered quickly, smiling broadly as she greeted Auntie Shade, and then turned to Ajanigo. "Mummy twins, please. I came to ask if you have matches," she said, scratching her head. Ajanigo looked at her surprised. These neighbors had never asked her for anything before. Instead, they would sit and laugh at her every time she passed by. But she never once confronted them. She got up, brought out a box of matches and handed it to her. "No, please, just give me 2 sticks," the neighbor said. "Don't worry, you can keep the box," Ajanigo replied, smiling. "Thank you so much," the neighbor said and left, still smiling. Ajanigo and Auntie Shade talked and laughed for hours before finally retiring to bed. Early the next morning, Auntie Shade woke up, took a bath, and embarked on her journey back to her base. A few hours later, Ajanigo and the kids dressed up and left for their new shop. The sight of it filled Ajanigo's heart with great joy. It was a beautiful sight to behold. She knelt before her children. "Auntie Shade got this beautiful place for us. So each time you pray, always pray that God should bless her with much money and beautiful things, okay?" They both nodded. Through the glass door, Ajanigo saw a truck parked outside the shop. She went outside to find out what was happening when 3 guys got out of the truck. "Good day, madam," one of them greeted. "Good day, sir," she responded. "Are you Miss Ajanigo?" he asked. She nodded. "One Mrs. Shade asked us to deliver some things to you," he said, then signaled the other guys, who went inside the truck. "Okay," Ajanigo said, standing there, wondering what it was. They ended up unloading several cartons. The guy who led them asked if they should help carry them inside the shop, and she nodded. After they were done, they left. Ajanigo moved closer to the first carton and opened it, and she was stunned. Summoning the courage to open the other cartons, she found 4 industrial machines. She screamed so loudly that her children looked at her with wide, scared eyes. She pulled them close and began singing and thanking God. He had not failed her. He had sent an angel in human form to bless her. She immediately called Auntie Shade and began praying for her, tears streaming down her face. Ajanigo started making clothes from the shop, and Auntie Shade recommended her to all her colleagues, who ended up becoming loyal customers. As a result, Ajanigo started gaining apprentices, and within 6 months, she had a total of 8 apprentices and was able to add 2 more machines to her shop. She also moved herself and the kids to a better home. 2 years later, Ajanigo was living a better life, the kind of life she had always wanted for herself and her children. She even bought a small car, and her business was thriving. One day, after dropping the kids at school, she hurried to the market to buy vegetables, as her children had requested vegetable soup. When she arrived at the market, she went straight to the first woman she saw selling vegetables. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How much are your vegetables?" she asked. "I'm not selling," the woman replied. "I don't understand," Ajanigo said, confused. "I said I'm not selling," the woman repeated, raising her head. It was Amanda. "Oh, wow. Okay then," Ajanigo said, smiling and walking away. A few days later, there was a fight near Ajanigo's shop, and a man was shot and killed. The authorities locked up all the shops, and everyone had to stay home for a few days. After 5 days, Ajanigo decided to drive down to see the situation. There were security men around. As she got out of the car, 2 security men by her shop greeted her. "Good afternoon, madam," they said. She turned to answer them, and one of the faces looked familiar. She walked up to them and stood before the familiar-looking one. "Good day, Desmond," she greeted, smiling. He stood there, shocked and unable to respond. Ajanigo greeted him with a smile, but when he didn't answer, she turned to the other military officer. "Good day, sir," she said, and he nodded in return. Ajanigo hadn't planned on opening her shop that day, but upon seeing Desmond, she confidently walked over, unlocked the door, and spent a few minutes inside. When she came back out, she paused to glance at the sign above her shop that read, "Nigo Stitches." She smiled, then walked back to her car and drove away, laughing to herself. Desmond remained rooted to the spot, still unable to say a word. As she drove off, she wondered if Desmond had been transferred back to the area. A week later, one of Ajanigo's apprentices informed her that someone was outside asking for her. To her surprise, it was Desmond. "How may I help you?" she asked, her tone sharp. "I want my children," Desmond replied, his expression unyielding. "You must be mad," Ajanigo thundered. Without waiting for his response, she stormed back into her shop, focusing on her work. Later that day, when Ajanigo went to pick up her children from school, they were nowhere to be found. "Where are my children?" she demanded, her voice rising in panic as she yelled at their class teacher. She frantically searched all the classrooms, but they were empty. Some of the other teachers tried to calm her, but her fear only grew. She was too overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face as she cried out in confusion and despair. "Mom, please calm down," one teacher pleaded, but Ajanigo ignored them. She returned to the class teacher, her eyes wild with fear. "What did you say happened to my kids?" she thundered. "Mom, I'm sorry," the teacher stammered, tears in her eyes. "A man came here in uniform, claiming to be their father. He threatened that if I didn't hand the children over, he would waylay me and shoot me on my way home. He said there was nothing anyone could do about it." None of this made sense to Ajanigo. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she felt like she was choking from crying so hard. "God, please wake me up from this nightmare. Let this not be real. I don't know if I can survive if it is," she whispered. By now, all the teachers had gathered, and the proprietor had been called. Ajanigo moved closer to the class teacher, who was still trembling. "If I don't find my kids, I will destroy you," Ajanigo warned through tears. "Do you know what I went through to have them? The insults, the humiliation, the rejection. I raised them alone without love or support from that man who now claims to be their father. And you just handed them over like that?" "Mom, please calm down," one of the other teachers urged from behind. Ajanigo turned on her, fury in her eyes. "Calm down. If I don't find my kids, you all will rot in jail, and your school will go down with you. Give me back my children," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. When the proprietor arrived, the teachers explained what had happened, as Ajanigo was too distraught to speak. She was sitting on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, when he tried to console her after calling the police. In a moment of clarity, she remembered she had a contact in the military. She called her aunt, Shade, who screamed on the phone, instructing her to call Desmond's friend. Shade promised to come the next day. Ajanigo called Desmond's friend, who arrived shortly after, along with the police. The class teacher was questioned and taken into custody. Ajanigo explained how Desmond had threatened her earlier that day. Desmond's friend was shocked and led them to Desmond's house, where they met Amanda. "Good day, Amanda. Is Desmond around?" Desmond's friend asked. Amanda looked frightened as she glanced from Ajanigo, who was still sobbing, to the police. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. Desmond's friend explained the situation to her. Amanda immediately looked terrified. "What? He hasn't come home, sir. He's still at work," she revealed. They all left in search of Desmond, but he was nowhere to be found. By then, it was late, and the police advised them to go home and return the next day. "Go home? To what? I don't even know if my children are safe," Ajanigo protested. "Madam, please calm down. We'll do our best to find him," one of the police officers assured her. "Nigo, please try to pull yourself together," Desmond's friend urged. "I know it's not easy, but I'll personally find him. I promise. Just go home until morning." Ajanigo nodded, though her heart was heavy with worry. The police took the class teacher away, but Ajanigo returned to Desmond's house and sat by the gate all night. She couldn't bear to go home, not knowing what had happened to her children. She sat there, crying and praying until dawn. Desmond never came home that night. Around 7 a.m., 2 cars drove into Desmond's compound, a Jeep and a Hilux. Ajanigo recognized Aunt Shade and several military men in uniform. She ran to her aunt, who hugged her tightly, whispering that everything would be okay. One of the men knocked on Desmond's door, and Amanda answered. "Where's your husband?" Aunt Shade demanded, not waiting for pleasantries. "I don't know, Mom. He hasn't been home since yesterday," Amanda replied, clearly scared. Aunt Shade stepped closer, smiling coldly. She looked Amanda in the eyes and said, "If you don't tell me where your husband is, I will take you to my base, lock you up, and after I've dealt with you to my satisfaction, I'll hand you over to the police." "Mom, please, he doesn't come home often." He has another house somewhere, Mom," Amanda confessed, trembling. "Get in the car and take us there," Aunt Shade ordered. They all drove to the house, which was in a quiet area. As they approached, they heard the cry of a little girl. "That's my Mitchell. That's my daughter's voice," Ajanigo shouted, running toward the door, trying to force it open. Aunt Shade held her back as the military men broke down the door after knocking and receiving no answer. Inside, they found Mitchell standing alone in the living room, her eyes red from crying. She ran to Ajanigo, who scooped her up, kissing her and rubbing her back. The men searched the house for her twin brother, but the back door was open. Desmond had escaped with him. The military men searched the surrounding area, but there was no sign of Desmond or the boy. They first went to the police station and then returned to Ajanigo's home with Aunt Shade, while the military men stayed outside. Ajanigo, you need to pull yourself together. We will find Michael, your son, I assure you, Aunt Shade said, comforting her. But when? Ajanigo asked through her tears. Soon, I promise you, Aunt Shade replied, patting her back. Ajanigo nodded weakly. We have to leave now before it gets too late. The police will take over from here, but keep me informed, Aunt Shade said. Ajanigo nodded again. Aunt Shade hugged her and Mitchell before leaving. Ajanigo looked at her 4-year-old daughter and smiled weakly. Thank God for bringing you back to me. But let's pray that Michael, your brother, is found unharmed, she said. Somebody took him away. He was crying, Mitchell said, pointing into the air. Ajanigo's heart broke. Yes, but he will be back soon, okay? She reassured her daughter, who nodded. That night, Ajanigo couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, her mind racing with thoughts of her son's safety. She couldn't wait for morning to come so she could continue her search. As soon as it was light, Ajanigo drove to Desmond's house, but no one was there. She then headed to the police station, where she was told that the search party had already gone out looking for him. On her way to Desmond's other house, she saw a police car approaching. Desmond's friend was in the car. She waved them down and asked if they had found Desmond or her son. We're still searching for him. We just checked his other house, but he's not there, Desmond's friend said. And my son? Ajanigo asked, tears in her eyes. We'll find him, just be assured, he said. Ajanigo stood there, her thoughts consumed by worry for her son. She couldn't even tell if he was alive or dead. Nigo, please calm down. I need to be on my way to work, but I'll come over to your house later, Desmond's friend said. Ajanigo nodded, tears streaming down her face. After they left, she got back into her car and drove home. On her way, she saw Amanda carrying a tray of vegetables on her head. Ajanigo got out of the car and approached her. Amanda looked at her without saying a word. Ajanigo was desperate, her voice trembling as she pleaded, I don't understand why your husband would suddenly show up and try to snatch my kids away from me. If you have any idea where I can find my son or where he has taken him, please let me know. Amanda, her expression troubled, replied, Even though I don't have a child of my own, I can't support or consent to kidnapping another woman's children, even if they are his. I'm sorry for everything, but I know nothing about these happenings. Ajanigo was stunned. You don't have a child yet? She asked, her voice filled with surprise. Amanda looked away and shook her head. Desmond has been mistreating me because of that. He no longer comes home to me or even cares about my well-being, she said, her voice breaking as tears welled up in her eyes. Ajanigo thought to herself, we all have our problems, but right now I have a bigger one that needs urgent attention. Without saying another word, she got into her car and drove off. 3 days later, her son was still missing and depression was beginning to take hold. She was lying at home with her daughter when Desmond's friend came by. She managed to get up and open the door, and he was shocked at the sight of her. Ajanigo, you look horrible. What happened to you? He asked, his concern evident. Ajanigo turned swiftly, her voice sharp with anguish. You expect me to look okay without my child? I don't expect you to look okay, but depression is beginning to show. Just take a look at yourself. You already look depressed. Please, try to be strong for your daughter's sake. We will find your son, he pleaded. I'll try, she said, tears streaming down her face. Months passed with no trace of her son. No one knew his whereabouts. He wasn't found at his workplace, and he never returned to his home. Ajanigo even went to his hometown in search of him, but the entire place was deserted. She asked a neighbor about Mama, Ofura and Shola, but they told her they had relocated to their village. 6 months went by with no word. Ajanigo resumed work after many months, though it was difficult for her to concentrate. She forced herself to be strong. One day her phone rang and the number was unknown. She answered cautiously. "Hello," she said. "Good day, madam. Am I speaking with Miss Ajanigo?" A woman's voice inquired. "Yes," Ajanigo replied. "My boss, Mrs. Shade, asked me to call you. She had an accident this morning and is hospitalized," the voice said. "Jesus," Ajanigo screamed, her heart racing. She quickly asked for the address, which was sent to her via text message. Rushing home, she picked up her daughter from school. Unable to drive to the hospital due to the distance, she took her daughter to the park and boarded a vehicle. When they arrived, they headed straight to the hospital. Auntie Shade was lying unconscious on the bed, and Ajanigo stayed with her. On the third day, Auntie Shade opened her eyes, and after about 2 weeks, she was discharged. Ajanigo informed Auntie Shade that she needed to return home because her daughter's exams were coming up. Auntie Shade understood and gladly granted her wish. On their way home, their vehicle developed a fault, and everyone had to get out while it was being fixed. As they waited, Ajanigo noticed a middle-aged woman walking towards them with a tray of oranges on her head. "Mama?" Ajanigo called out, recognizing Desmond's mother. Desmond's mother approached quickly, her tray of oranges balanced on her head. "Good afternoon, Ma. My oranges are very sweet. How many do you want?" she asked, her voice full of energy. "Mama, it's me," the younger woman said softly. Desmond's mother froze, her eyes widening in recognition as the tray wobbled precariously before she set it down carefully. "Ajanigo," she exclaimed, pointing at her in disbelief. Ajanigo nodded. "Oh my God," Desmond's mother cried out before dropping to her knees. "Please forgive me, my dear. I'm so sorry for everything I did to you in the past," she pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mama, please get up. You don't need to do this, especially not here in public," Ajanigo said gently as she helped Desmond's mother to her feet. "I went to the house a few months back, but I found no one there. A neighbor told me you had all moved to the village," Ajanigo added. Desmond's mother let out a heavy sigh. "We had to move to the village because Shola sold the house without my consent," she explained, tears welling up in her eyes as she wiped them away with the hem of her wrapper. Ajanigo was stunned. "What?" "Yes, a friend of his said he would take him to Malaysia, so he made Shola sell the house and then duped him out of the money," Desmond's mother confessed, her voice breaking. "So where's Shola now?" Ajanigo asked. "I don't know. He absconded ever since I found out and threatened to have him arrested and put in jail," Desmond's mother explained, her eyes filled with sorrow. "And Ofura?" Ajanigo inquired. "Ofura got pregnant by a guy she met in school, and she's been living with him in his village," she answered, shaking her head in disbelief. "This all feels like a dream to me." "But we thank God for life," Ajanigo said, trying to make sense of it all. Desmond's mother wiped her tears again and looked at Ajanigo's daughter. She gently took the little girl into her arms and fresh tears began to stream down her face. "I know I haven't been a good grandmother, and I haven't played any role in your life. I just pray that you and your twin—" "Forgive me," she said, her voice cracking. Then she looked up suddenly. "Where's her twin?" Ajanigo hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was watching them. Every time she recounted what had happened, she felt a deep sense of guilt. "Talk to me, Ajanigo. Where is he?" Desmond's mother pressed. "Mama, when was the last time you saw Desmond?" Ajanigo asked instead. "I haven't set eyes on him since last year when he came home," Desmond's mother replied. Ajanigo took a deep breath and told her everything that had happened. Desmond's mother screamed so loudly that other passengers and passers-by began to look their way. They stayed there for nearly 2 hours until their vehicle was fixed. During that time, Desmond's mother held Ajanigo's daughter close, unable to let go. When it was time to leave, Ajanigo took Ofura's contact information and gave Desmond's mother some money. Desmond's mother packed nearly all the oranges from her tray into a bag and handed it to them. Ajanigo initially refused, but Desmond's mother insisted. As they drove away, she stood there, waving until she was out of sight. Upon arriving home, Ajanigo immediately called Ofura, and they reconnected. Exactly a year after Desmond had taken her son, Ajanigo's daughter, his twin, fell critically ill. She was unconscious for days, and it was only by God's grace that she recovered. 2 years later, on the exact same day that her son had been taken, her daughter fell ill again, but eventually recovered. This pattern continued each year, and as the date approached, Ajanigo would become frightened, going on her knees to fast and pray for her daughter's total healing. One day, she went to her pastor for prayers, and he advised her to be at peace with everyone. Believing this was the root cause of her problems, she went in search of her mother. When she reached the village and her mother saw her mother fell to the ground, apologizing profusely. Ajanigo assured her that she had long forgiven her and that she needed to know who her father was. Her mother gave her the name and address, which Ajanigo wrote down. After spending time with her siblings and giving them some money, she left the village, grateful for the joyous reunion. A week later, Ajanigo went in search of her father. When she arrived at the location, the place looked familiar. It was the same village where she had been rejected by the Oro. To her surprise, the address she had was the house of the same man who had rescued her. She knocked on the door and a woman opened it. After exchanging pleasantries, older woman looked at Ajanigo closely and then brought a chair for her to sit. "I'm sorry, but your face looks so familiar," older woman said. "Yes, ma," Ajanigo replied. "Your husband rescued my children and me some time ago when we were attacked by robbers. He brought us home." "Oh, the one with the twins." "What about the other twin?" older woman asked, noticing that Ajanigo had only her daughter with her. "It's a long story, ma," Ajanigo replied, her voice heavy. "I see. So what brings you here?" older woman inquired. "I'm here to see Mr. Rotimi David, ma," Ajanigo said, looking around the house. "That's Baba, my husband. He went to the farm, but he'll be back soon," older woman said with a smile. "I don't understand, ma. I thought the Oro people had struck him dead that time." "What happened?" Ajanigo asked curiously. "Yes, they struck him, but later they came and revived him. They also informed us that they couldn't use you. We were surprised too because we didn't know you were from here and you never told us," older woman explained. "That's actually why I'm here to see Baba, ma. But I'll wait for him," Ajanigo said. "Is everything okay?" older woman asked, concerned. Ajanigo nodded, though her heart was heavy with the burden of her story. As they waited, a heavily pregnant young lady entered the compound, carrying firewood on her head. Ajanigo stood up as soon as she saw her, unable to believe her eyes. "Ophir," she called out. The firewood dropped to the ground as the young lady froze. "Auntie Nigo, is that you? I don't remember giving you our address." "How did you find me?" Ophir asked, standing before her, eyes wide with surprise. "Ophir, actually, I'm here to see Baba Rotimi," Ajanigo said, holding her hand. They talked for a while before Baba finally returned from the farm. He was stunned to see Ajanigo. After exchanging pleasantries, they sat down to talk. "Baba, my mother gave me your address. I'm looking for my father. I've never met him." My mother said they both had a secret affair years back, and during that period, the man was working with the postal service. Baba's face went pale. "What did she tell you the man's name was?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Mr. Rotimi David, sir," Ajanigo replied. Baba stood up from his chair. "What's your mother's name?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Mrs. Enyo Thomas," Ajanigo answered. "The fair Igala woman with tribal marks?" Baba asked again. Ajanigo nodded. He stepped closer and held her hands, prompting her to stand up. He looked deep into her eyes. "No wonder my heart beat faster than usual the first time I met you. God has finally fulfilled his promise in my life. I have no child of my own. All these children you see around here are my siblings' children. God has indeed remembered me despite my age," he said, smiling as tears of joy rolled down his cheeks. Ajanigo spent 2 days with them before returning to her base. Her father didn't want her to leave, but she promised to come and visit him often. Back at home, Ajanigo went straight to visit Desmond's friend to ask if he had heard anything about Desmond. The friend mentioned that someone had told him they saw Desmond in Cotonou. Ajanigo was shocked and heartbroken. "Does that mean I'll never see my son again?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "Nigo, if it's God's will for us to find him, we will," her friend said, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Unable to think clearly, Ajanigo left without saying another word. She continued to pray fervently for her son's return. A week later, Ajanigo was in the shop when she received a call that her Aunt Shade had died. She couldn't survive the accident because the doctor had once told them that she was bleeding internally. It felt as though Ajanigo's world had come to an end. Even though her son's disappearance had torn her apart, she had found some happiness in reuniting with her family. But now the worst had happened. Aunt Shade, the one she called in distress, the one who always had her back, the one who accepted her when the whole world rejected her, and the one who took her in as the daughter she never had. Aunt Shade had left her without a word. She left her to suffer all alone. Aunt Shade was buried 2 weeks later, and many people testified to her kindness. Though she had no children of her own, the only family she had left was her husband and her elder brother. 2 weeks after the burial, Aunt Shade's lawyer called Ajanigo and asked her to be present for the reading of the will. She didn't know why they wanted her there, but she decided to heed the call. When the will was read, it was revealed that Aunt Shade had 2 houses which she had built on her own. One was in Ajanigo's town, where Aunt Shade had once served, and the other was in her village. To Ajanigo's surprise, the house in her town was given to her, while the one in the village was given to Aunt Shade's brother. Aunt Shade had written Ajanigo's name in the will, bequeathing her the house and a sum of 5 million naira. Even in death, Aunt Shade still had Ajanigo in mind. Some months later, on the exact date her son had been taken away, Ajanigo's daughter fell ill. Ajanigo took her to the hospital and she recovered. Since then, whenever that same time of year approached, Ajanigo made sure to be close to her daughter. 12 years later, Ajanigo's daughter gained admission to study law at the university. When the time of year when she usually fell ill was near, Ajanigo called her daughter and asked her to return home, but she refused. Her daughter, much like her, was not one to keep many friends. She told her mother that exams were around the corner, so Ajanigo prayed for her. The following day, Ajanigo received a call from a young man asking her to rush to the school clinic, telling her that her daughter had passed out. Ajanigo rushed to the school, and when she arrived, she found her daughter unconscious and alone on the bed. Ajanigo took care of her until she was discharged and then brought her home. When it was time for her daughter to resume school, they went grocery shopping together. Her daughter told her that the young man who had called to inform her about her health was being mistreated by his stepmother and father, and asked Ajanigo to get him some provisions and foodstuff. Ajanigo agreed, but warned her daughter not to make the mistake of falling in love with him. She reminded her daughter of her own story and all she had gone through, and her daughter assured her that nothing of the sort would happen. The next day, Ajanigo was in her shop when a fight broke out in a barber shop next to her store. A young man arrived on a bike and parked directly in front of the shop. He was asked to use the designated parking space, but he refused, arrogantly asking the barber if he knew who he was. The barber and others continued to politely ask him to move, but the young man grabbed a bottle and attempted to stab the barber with it. The police were called, and as soon as the young man saw them, he pulled out a gun to shoot the barber. But one of the policemen shot him instead, and he fell lifeless to the ground. Everyone was frightened, and as the crowd gathered to see the young man who had been shot, Ajanigo summoned the courage to take a look. To her shock, it was Shola. The police took Shola's corpse away in their van, and Ajanigo stood there crying uncontrollably. "Madam, do you know him?" a voice asked from behind. Ajanigo looked at older woman and shook her head. "No, I don't," she said, hurrying into her shop. She picked up her phone and called Desmond's mother, asking her to travel down because there was something she wanted her to see, and then gave her the address. Desmond's mother arrived very early the next morning, and Ajanigo told her what had happened. Mama threw herself on the ground, crying and wailing inconsolably. One of her wrappers even came loose and fell to the ground. Ajanigo picked it up and forcibly tied it around Mama's waist. Ajanigo couldn't concentrate while driving to the police station. Mama was constantly slapping her thighs and wailing. When they arrived at the police station, Shola's corpse was identified and later released for burial. "Where do I get the money to take his corpse home? I don't even have anything." "The only money I have left is 250 naira, Mama said, opening her bag. "Who do I call on? Who do I have?" Mama asked rhetorically while sitting on the bare floor. Ajanigo moved close and squatted before her. "Mama, you don't have to worry. I'll take care of everything," Ajanigo said. Mama looked at her and stood up swiftly, holding her footwear in her hands. "What did you say?" "Oh, Ajanigo, with all the wickedness I have shown you in the past, you still have this kind of heart towards me," Mama declared, tears in her eyes. "It's okay, Ma," Ajanigo said, giving her a hug. Ajanigo arranged for an ambulance, and Shola's corpse was taken home while Mama and Ajanigo drove behind it. Shola was buried amidst tears. Ajanigo thought that Desmond would show up for the burial, which was one of the main reasons she went with Mama, but he never did. Ajanigo always had a feeling that her son was alive somewhere and assured herself that they would meet soon. A few days later, Ajanigo's daughter called her, saying that her male friend couldn't afford his fees and was already being humiliated in school by some lecturers, begging her mother to please help pay the fees. She also mentioned that the person accommodating him had chased him out the previous night for failing to contribute to their food, and that the young man had been staying with her since then. Ajanigo immediately transferred some money to her daughter to get him a small place and also pay his fees, which she did that same day. A few hours later, Ajanigo's daughter Mitchell called to inform her that the young man wanted to talk to her and thank her for all she had done for him without even knowing him. Ajanigo asked her to hand the phone over to the young man so she could speak with him. "Hello, Ma." "Good evening, Ma," he greeted. As soon as Ajanigo heard his voice, the teacup she was holding fell from her hand and shattered, and her heart began to beat faster than normal. There was something about the voice that she couldn't explain. "What's your name?" she asked. "My name is Donald, Ma," he replied. "Are you sure?" she questioned again. "Yes, Ma," he responded. "Okay, I'll be visiting very soon, and I would like to see you when I come around," Ajanigo said. "It's okay, Ma. I'll be so happy to meet you," he declared. 2 days later, Ajanigo went to their school. She asked Mitchell to take her to Donald's lodge, which she did. Donald wasn't around and he didn't have a phone, so we decided to sit on a bench on the corridor to wait for him. After 2 hours of waiting, he still hadn't shown up. "Mum, let's go to my place. We can come back in the morning," Mitchell suggested. Ajanigo shook her head. "Let's wait another 30 minutes, she replied, checking the time. "Mum, it could be that Donald has gone home and will return tomorrow. What's so special about seeing him anyway?" Mitchell said, her face scrunched in frustration. "Please, let's wait a while longer," Ajanigo insisted. Just then, Mitchell's phone rang. She excused herself and walked toward the entrance of the building, speaking into the phone. "Where have you been? My mum and I have been waiting for you," Mitchell said, sounding exasperated. "That's not true. Where is she?" the voice on the other end asked hurriedly. Mitchell motioned for Ajanigo as she saw him approaching. Ajanigo stood up as he drew near, her heartbeat quickening. Even without seeing his face clearly, she sensed something familiar about him. When he finally reached her, he prostrated before her, leaving her stunned. "Rise," Ajanigo said, tears already forming in her eyes. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Michael." He glanced at Mitchell, then back at Ajanigo. "My name isn't Michael, Ma. It's Donald," he said, placing a hand on his chest. "Mum, please, let's not do this here. I know you miss my brother, but this isn't Michael." "Let's just go back to my place," Mitchell urged, her voice rising in desperation. "I know what I'm saying, Mitchell. This boy standing before me is your long-lost brother, Michael," Ajanigo affirmed. "How do you know?" Mitchell asked, her voice laced with doubt. "He suckled at my breast for 2 good years. I would recognize him anywhere," Ajanigo replied firmly. Donald laughed nervously. "I don't understand, Ma. My name is Donald," he said again, confusion evident in his voice. "Where's your father?" Ajanigo asked, tears streaming down her face. "He works with the school's security unit, Ma," Donald answered. "Take me to him," Ajanigo instructed. They got into the car and drove to the security unit of the school. By the time they arrived, it was already 6 p.m. They were told that he had closed for the day and they should return the next morning. "Ma, I can take you to our place so you can see him if you don't mind," Donald offered. "I don't mind. Please do," Ajanigo replied, hurrying out of the car. However, as they were on their way, she changed her mind. "Can we leave it till tomorrow?" she asked, glancing at Donald. "You've changed your mind?" Mitchell asked, surprised. "Yes, it's getting late. We'll go back to his workplace in the morning," Ajanigo replied. She had decided to wait until morning because she felt it wasn't wise to go there alone without the police or a witness. What if things turn the other way, and he decides to do something nasty, like fight me or even run away? She thought to herself. They drove straight to Mitchell's lodge. The sky had become cloudy, signaling the approaching rain. "Let me hurry back to my place before it starts raining, Ma," Donald said, standing up from the couch. "Why? No, you can't go. Just stay and have dinner first," Ajanigo suggested. Donald looked at Mitchell and smiled. "And maybe watch 1 or 2 movies," Mitchell added, smiling back. "It's just that it's getting late," Donald said, glancing out the window. "You can stay the night, you know. This is your sister's house. Please stay, Michael. I've really missed you," Ajanigo said, sitting beside him and wiping away a tear. "Ma, I still don't understand all this. My dad told me my mum died while giving birth to me. My name is Donald, not Michael. Or is there some mix-up?" Donald asked, looking at her with confusion. Ajanigo shook her head vehemently. "There's no mix-up anywhere," she replied. "Do you have a scar on your right thigh?" she asked. Donald slowly stood up, looked at Mitchell, then at Ajanigo, and nodded slowly, his mouth agape. "What?" Mitchell exclaimed. "You got that scar when you were playing with your friends one sunny afternoon. You were very young, and I was having a bath when I heard you scream. I hurriedly wrapped a towel around my soapy body and ran to you. I carried you in my arms and rushed to a chemist shop close to the house. You were losing so much blood. I begged the chemist to treat you on credit because I had no money, and he ended up treating you and stitching the wound free of charge," Ajanigo recounted. "What? I still can't believe this. So what happened? How were you separated? And why do you suddenly want to see him? Didn't you love me enough to have abandoned me with him? He has beaten me with everything imaginable. Do we talk about the starvation or the constant torture from his wife?" Donald questioned, tears streaming down his cheeks. Ajanigo sat him down and explained everything that had happened. They all ended up crying, too emotional to eat. It rained heavily that night, but to Ajanigo that rain was a sign of bliss. She couldn't sleep all through the night. She would wake up, go check on Donald lying on the couch in the living room, and rearrange the duvet his sister had covered him with. He was lying on his stomach, his favorite sleeping position since childhood. Ajanigo stood close to him, watching him sleep, tears in her eyes. She wasn't crying because she had found him. She was crying because there was no Auntie Shade to tell that she had won the battle. She had already messaged Desmond's friend, who promised to come the next morning and was boarding a night bus. The next morning, Michael woke up and came to Ajanigo in the kitchen. "Good morning, Mom," he greeted with a smile. Hearing him call her Mom again gladdened her heart so much. She hugged him tightly and promised never to allow anyone to mistreat him ever again. After breakfast, they left for the security unit of the school. Ajanigo had already sent the address to Desmond's friend. Lo and behold, Desmond was standing there, arguing with a lady. Ajanigo didn't see his face, but as soon as she heard his voice, she knew it was him. Michael walked up to him, with Ajanigo following close behind. "Dad, Daddy," Michael called, but Desmond was too engrossed in the argument to hear him. Michael tapped his shoulder and Desmond turned swiftly. "Are you mad? Have I not told you never to come looking for me at my workplace again?" Desmond snapped as soon as he saw Michael. "Dad, Michael stammered. "Will you shut that mouth of yours? Are you stupid?" Desmond raised his hand, about to slap Michael when Ajanigo caught his hand. He looked at her, his jaw dropping in shock. "Don't you ever touch my child with that filthy hand of yours again," Ajanigo thundered, and Desmond slowly lowered his hand. "Ajanigo," he called out, shocked. "Yes, it's me," Ajanigo replied. "What, Desmond?" a voice said from behind. As she turned back, she saw Desmond's friend standing there. "You're a devil, Desmond. You abandoned your job and abducted a child you never showed love or cared about. I'm so disappointed in you," Desmond's friend lamented. Desmond was dumbfounded and couldn't utter a word. His friend called the police, and Desmond was immediately whisked away. No wonder. The only thing he did was pay my school fees. He never cared about me, just like his wife. They would beat me and make me serve punishments even in the middle of the night. That's why I went to squat with a friend, just to be away from them. I was never aware of the real story," Michael said, tears streaming down his face. Mitchell and she went to him, and they all hugged. It was the happiest moment of her life. Later, they heard that Desmond had committed suicide in prison. At least now she finally had peace of mind, having her son back. The end.